So everybody in the organization had a part to play and had a personal feeling that they were a shareholder in that company. So it's not just somebody that comes in and does some work, but they feel a part of that organization.
Growing a business requires a holistic approach that extends beyond sales and marketing. This approach needs alignment among people, processes, and technologies. So if you're a business owner, operations, or finance leader looking to learn growth strategies from your peers and competitors, you're tuned into the right podcast. Welcome to the WBS Podcast, where scalable growth using business systems is our number one priority. Now, here is your host, Sam Gupta.
Hey everyone, welcome back to another episode of the WBS podcast. I'm Sam Gupta, your host and principal consultant at digital transformation consulting firm Elevate IQ. If you focused on the metrics for each employee where they contributed to the organization's overall improvement, it could result in millions of dollars of savings. But finding the areas of improvement is easier said than done. It requires you to perform gap analysis and trace the Gemba. It requires you to perform a deeper study of data, identify appropriate KPIs, and continuously measure to become operationally resilient. In today's episode, we have our guest, Tamar Nelson, who discusses why an organization needs to become operationally resilient to combat uncertainty. She also describes why a gap analysis is required to identify the areas of improvement and start on the journey of operational resiliency. Finally, she shares several stories where she has made transformational changes to the organization by tracing the Gemba through data, surveys, and process mapping. Let me introduce Tamar to you. Tamar is a specialist with over 21 years of experience at the forefront of operational resilience, serving to bring COOs and their organizations the ability to ensure systems and capabilities, cultivate adaptable practices, and manage risks in real time with an efficient plan to create profitable outcomes for stakeholders, end users, and regulators. Armed with an industrial and system engineering foundation at both the undergrad and master's level, lean, agile, scrum, and energy management certified. With that, let's get to the conversation. Hey, welcome to the show, Tamar.
Hi, Sam. I am so excited to be here. Thank you so much for having me. I'm looking forward to our chat and to share with your audience as well.
And I'm super excited to get into your journey as well. Just to kick things off, do you want to start with your personal story and current focus?
Sure. Well, Sam, I'm speaking to you from Kingston, Jamaica, right? That's where I'm located. And I would consider my desire always to be continuously improve and to grow myself and to help others to do the same. And this is a long journey that that I have embarked on, not only for myself but to include those around me as well. And that is my natural inclination to be always seeking knowledge and always helping and always seeing how to improve. And that's my passion. And this journey that I have been on started many years ago. And I carry these traits forward today, where I now head the national organization in Jamaica that's responsible for facilitating national growth and development. And I have the pleasure of working hand in hand with chief operations officers and business owners and CFOs and GMs, unions, international partners with in over 250 organizations within the 20 odd years that I have been in this field. And, it all started from me growing up in various international cultures, right? So I was born in Jamaica, went and did my first degree in industrial and systems engineering in Trinidad and Tobago, then left Trinidad and went to Rochester Institute of Technology in New York, and then left there and did work in Japan and other countries in the Caribbean, so, and worked with persons from different cultures and all in the area of business improvement, right? So even my first job out of university, within a year of working there, I was head of the business improvement unit. So everything that I've done has always been structured around how to make things better, to be more resilient, to especially as it relates to operations and processes, right? And so even when my journey to Japan, it just cemented all the learnings that I've had over the years in industrial and systems engineering, the learnings in lean and agile, everything came together with that experience there where they teach us in Japan, Sam, that we need to go right to the source. We need to go right to what we call Gemba and get what's happening, to go and see what's happening on the floor and to develop
Yep.
systems to help to improve. But importantly, to always involve the people in the process. And the
Yep.
people is at the heart of everything that is done in terms of improvement. And I firmly believe that in operations and building resilience in an organization, and for that organization to grow, you have to have a people driven process to do so.
We are definitely going to dig deeper into all of that. Obviously, the
Sure.
operational resiliency is going to be an exciting topic. I think we
Yeah,
would like you to dig deeper into that. We would like you to define. But before we do that, we have one of the
sure.
standard questions here for all of our guests, and that is going to be your perspective on business growth. What does business
Oh,
growth mean to you, Tamar?
I think business growth is everything. I firmly believe if you're not growing, you're dead. And I always say to my clients, if you're doing the same thing that you have been doing last year or even last week, then you're not growing, right? And
Yep.
my philosophy is on in the area of continuous improvement. And every day we should be looking at ways and areas that we need to improve. And that again is also deeply rooted in the philosophies of Kaizen and Lean and the Japanese philosophy in terms of continuously improving. And
Yep.
again, what they have done is built systems around how to do that, not on a one-off basis, but every day into what you do. And I can give you a story in that regard, Sam, where, while as a consultant working in Japan, we were working under different senses or teachers
Yep.
that were in the field for many more years than we were. And we were working in Toyota contracting firms. So
Yep.
these were suppliers to Toyota. And we were tasked with improving these facilities. Now, when I stepped into this facility, I am saying, but I don't see anything to improve. It looks perfect. Coming
Yep.
from where I am in the Caribbean, like what else can you do? And based on what I was used to, this was like top notch.
Oh
And
wow.
and I was like, wow, everything was just so efficient. And I'm like, how are we gonna find anything to improve? It doesn't seem like it. And we were tasked to find an area for improvement. And we went into the lunchroom and we're there in the conference room and we're typing away at our computers on our laptops. And I remember the sensei came in and he was pink. And the instructor, the interpreter came in and was, she started to interpret. And I know she didn't interpret word for word. She kind of calmed it down a couple notches. But he was very furious with us. He was mad because he was saying, how can you help or improve when you sit in a room on your computer? You have to get up off your rears, go outside and look and see and find
Yep.
the areas for improvement. And
Yep.
we went out there and funny enough, we did find areas for improvement. But
Yep.
it took us, being persistent, looking with a fresh eye,
Yep.
going, talking to persons, integrating ourselves into the system to actually get to feel and know and see where the gaps are and what is needed to ensure that these operations were efficient and constantly improving, right? And that really left a mark on me, Sam. And I take that, those lessons straight to today in terms of anything I'm doing. If I'm working with a client, I become a customer. So I would literally buy the service or buy the product out of my own pocket before I even
Yep.
sign anything at all. Because then I get to feel what the stakeholders feel, how the system works, what the gaps are. Before I even do anything at all, I become a customer. And that has helped me so much to help other persons in terms of looking at who they serve and realizing that, the customer is who you serve and who is the most important person in what we do. And even just the other day, a client of mine came to me and asked me, what should we be focusing on? We have this metric and we have that metric, and we want to improve as much as possible the utilization of our plants. And I said to them, but do you have the market for it? What is your demand for the product? Because it doesn't make sense. You're pushing a product when there is no market for it. So you have to develop a system where you're pulling instead of pushing on the customer. So we have to take it from that perspective. And then we maximize our capacity and our utilization and efficiencies to match that, right? But below a certain point, it doesn't, you are operating at a loss. And you can be at maximum capacity and be inefficient. And that is possible. You can be wasting a lot. So we have to bear those things in mind. So, I could go on and on with stories, Sam, but that just gives you a little window into how passionately I view the whole matter of improvement and growth. So even on a personal level, and I believe that at the core are human beings, right? So even if we have the latest artificial intelligence and mechanical systems or computerized systems, we still need persons behind that. And, it's at the core of everything we do. Either we're serving them in some way, shape, or form. And so we have to connect that human element always to the matter of growth. And I believe that organization that has persons who are engaged and motivated and growing will also be contributing positively to the growth of the organizations that they're attached to. And generally, as a stakeholder or a customer, you will be able to detect that in an organization. And even going back to the example from Japan, there was one thing that they would say, anytime that they're gonna do business with another company, they'll ask to use the restroom. And depending on how the restroom looked, they would do business or not do business.
Yeah,
It
yeah.
sounds Yes, it sounded kind of weird, but in time I kind of
It is
understood.
weird.
Yes, but basically I think it goes back to the whole aspect that if you can't manage your own house, how are you gonna manage mine?
That
You
that
have
is true.
Yes, you have to have your ducks in a row. So
Yeah,
it's a sign of how well you're doing. Another sign that they had was to look at the shop floor. I know you do a lot of work in manufacturing, and if you go in and you see a lot of spillages and oils and waste and cuttings on the ground, it was a no-no for business. So everybody in the organization had a part to play and had a personal feeling that they were a shareholder in that company. So it's not just, somebody that comes in and does some work, but they feel a part of that organization. And so they treat it like they would their own homes. So even though we were consultants working there, Sam, we had a
yeah,
day where we had to join the team and clean up the place, meaning even water the flowers and
yeah,
clean the garden and clean up the machinery and everything like that. And
yeah,
it
yeah,
was it phenomenal. And I know you could see that level of dedication and engagement. And every day they had something new to put on that table as it relates to improvement. Now, can you believe if you have an improvement a day from every employee in a company for an entire year and that each of them led to saving, how
yeah,
much a company could save in a
yeah,
year? Even
yeah,
if they got one a week, right? That's 50 or 52 per year from one employee in terms of
yeah,
improvement initiative. And you multiply that by 10, that's 520. And if each of them gives you $100 in terms of savings, right?
yeah, yeah,
that's,
yeah,
that's, that's over $500,000 in savings.
yeah.
And that money could be used to be reinvested in the organization in your people, which can help you to further grow as an organization.
Yeah. So before we get into the technicality of the discussion today, I'm actually going to have a fun question for you.
All
Going
right.
back to your comment about getting your ducks in the row. So, do clients, when they try to hire you, Do they ask for the picture of your home? See how you are managing it before they can hire you.
I, I, w- I wish I could show you the picture of where I am now. And I'm looking at the Caribbean Sea with palm trees, and it's just an amazing place to be.
All
But
right, so
no,
now let's get into
but
the
no.
topic, okay?
But to answer your question, Sam, I mean, I think persons who engage me are interested in results, and I am also, very results driven,
Yeah,
right? I like to look and dig deep into where the problems are and finding ways to ensure that there's meaningful change. Because what we're looking for at the end of everything is a transformation,
yeah,
right? So it's not a matter of just going through the motions, because you will have programs where persons will get excited and then it dies off. But what
yeah.
we're looking for is that more systems or a framework that would allow, that flexibility and agility that is so robust that persons can then, they would no longer be looking to someone else for these solutions, but they will have that in their organization, which was created bespoke for them, that they can continuously improve and grow over time.
Yeah, so let's talk about operational resiliency. Can you define what that is? And
Right.
from the concept perspective, I mean, when I look at the lean concept, they all sound very easy, right? It's
Yeah.
not a rocket
Yeah.
science, but we both know, Tamar, when we look at,
Uh-huh.
let's say, the traditional manufacturers or the distributors, right? I mean, see, it almost
Mm-hmm.
seems like as if they have not improved in the last 100 years, even though
Whew.
they are they are
Wow.
going to be, see, if they have, let's say, the 10% improvement on a daily basis, then they would be making billions of dollars, right? But they are not. We we all know that they are not. I mean, they are all SMB for a reason. They very
Right.
rarely, grow. So obviously, in theory, these concepts sounds great, but applying them for real growth is
Uh-huh.
very difficult, right? So first, let's define what operational resiliency is. Can you define
Right.
that?
Well, operational resilience is something that we are hearing a lot, especially since the pandemic, right? Personal resilience, business resiliency. Well, operational resilience is defined as the ability of an organization to adapt rapidly to the changing environment. And this includes both the resilience of your systems and your processes, and more generally, the ability of the organization to continue to operate its business in the event of disruptive events. So it's basically in this world of disruption, and we had one major one in the past year, right? It's looking at how quickly an organization is going to one respond to the disruption,
Yeah,
and then recover to where they were pre the disruption, right? Because
yeah,
you'll find that for different organizations they'll have a different response and recovery rate. So we're not just looking at a response, because you can respond quickly and be barely surviving. It's like a ghost operation. You just barely get it going through the motions, and you have inefficiencies all over the place. You're not really growing. You're not meeting your demands, right?
yeah,
Everything is out of control. Or so operational resilience looks at both how quickly you respond. So, hey, everything had to shut down. How quickly do I get my operation online? And then how quickly do I get it up to about the same or beyond where it was pre the disruption, right? So this year we had a pandemic disruption. Next year it might be something different. Next month it might be something different. So operational resilience is really looking at the operations and seeing, okay, where are my gaps and how can I build resiliency, and creating a plan for that so that whatever comes up, you are able to resist and to be able to continue your operations, right? So it's a little bit more than just continuing. It's looking at what's critical in your organization and ensuring that it takes top priority and that it continues whatever is happening. So, in terms of looking at it, one of the things that I normally recommend is looking at a gap assessment of your organization as it relates to operational resiliency. So, one of the things that a lot of persons would have noticed is that with this pandemic, and as you were saying earlier before we came on, everybody's affected worldwide. Everybody's
yeah,
on the same facing the same challenges, no matter what country you're in, no matter what field you're in, we're getting hit. And when you get hit by a disruption, you feel it most in your weakest area, right? And for each organization, that weak area will be different, right? Based on what your systems are, what your processes are, etc. So for one organization, it might be communication, for example. Another, it would be in your supply chain. Another, it might be in operations, or another, it may be a demand type hit. Whatever, especially for the past year, that you have noticed has come up as the area of weakness, please do not ignore that. It's telling you something that needs to be worked on. And if you were able to withstand and still be operating now, it may not be enough to help you through the next disruption. So that's an area that you need to start in, and that would mark as a critical area in terms of your business critical services that you need to really map out and measure to assess what the gaps are, what needs to be done, and to fix that so that the next time around it wouldn't be that area. Now, the thing with weak areas or a bottleneck, it moves, right? And it moves from one area to another. And so it's a continuous process. But what you can do is reduce the magnitude of the impact that it creates if, based on when it does occur. And so that's what we would be looking at. And in terms of operation resiliency, doing that gap assessment is really crucial, where you look at, those critical processes, mapping them, measuring and testing them, right? And also looking at the whole human interface and interaction in the whole framework or the whole process to look at how they are impacted in that disruption.
So how does the measuring and testing process works? So let's say
Right.
if you were to study and figure out where the gaps are,
Mm-hmm.
what would be the approach? Let's say if you are assigned to a hypothetical business, so you can go
Uh-huh.
back to your existing story, or you can pick up a new story, or you can take a hypothetical scenario. And
Okay.
now let's say if you are doing gap analysis,
Mm-hmm.
so maybe you can describe the business situation, then then provide, okay,
Mm-hmm.
how either you have performed gap
Mm-hmm.
analysis in your last engagement,
Mm-hmm.
or maybe just create a hypothetical story. So
Okay.
describe how you would perform the gap analysis, what will be the process of measurement, and
Mm-hmm.
how the testing will be done.
Okay, that's an excellent question, Sam. And it varies from company to company, and it's based on how they are structured, what they do have in place, and what they don't have in place. I know for many, measuring what matters is very important. And for many, they may not be measuring any at all or don't have the systems to capture the information. So it may be if they have that information ready, and I have worked with persons who have that information ready, it's easy to just go straight into taking that data and using that data to tell a story. And what I've found is that persons or organizations would have excellent dashboards with information, and they report on many, many things, but not focusing really on what matters, or not looking at the trends or digging deeper to see what the data is telling us. And there is so much information that we can gather from the data that can help to make informed decisions as to the future of our organizations. And, it could be that the management team or they don't have the time to really deep dive into that information. They may be busy out in fires, or the organization may be caught in a downward spiral of setback, right? And I'll give you an example of one company that I worked with just after coming back from Japan. And it was in a recessionary period. And, I worked with one of their manufacturing plants. And what I did, I took all the data that they had, quality data, line data. And one thing that they did have, they were measuring a lot of things, right? So
Yeah.
I took that information, did all the analysis on it, and really showed them, hey, look at the gaps that you have here. So they were measuring something, for example, like, or our efficiency is 81%, for example. And I said, well, suppose I challenge you to go to 85%. If you go to 85%, it would mean this increase in revenue, this increase in production, this reduction in waste, etc., etc. Or I was able to find an area where, there was a lot of waste in that area and they didn't even realize it. They were over producing. And
Yeah.
even though it was probably 2%, it resulted in millions of saving by just doing some tweaks to the machinery and getting it to specification. They were able to save so much raw material that it was unbelievable because in that year they were the only entity that recorded a profit. Because what they did is that whatever they were taught on the lines that we worked on, they were able to replicate it throughout the company and resulted in about 2.5 million US dollars in savings just by looking at the numbers. So aside
Yeah.
from looking at the numbers, one of the other things that I did was to train the team into and giving them the autonomy to do the implementation. So with the help of working with the management team and the line workers, everybody together cross-functionally, we were able to just attack the lines, look at the problems, etc. And the successes were shared with the employees. I mean, we just had a beautiful program where it was a win-win and it just created a domino effect that they just went on. They solved one problem onto the next, onto the next, onto the next. And so it just cascaded throughout that company. They were recognized, and then it spread to all the business entities within the group afterwards. So, that's one example that I could share with you.
Right. So let's talk about this data, right? So you said that you basically went there, you analyze the quality data and the design
Mhm.
data.
Right.
So now, depending upon how large the company is, depending upon how many product lines they have, depending upon how many
Mhm.
customers and vendors that they have, right?
Mhm. Mhm.
Now, this database could be slightly bigger than what a person can analyze.
Yeah.
So in your case, I mean, what kind of data set are you looking for? Can you talk about some sample fields maybe? Did you have to work with IT to be able to get this data? What data set are you looking for? How big the data set need to be? How many data points do you need to get? And what kind of data elements are you looking for from the quality perspective, from the design perspective, so that you can analyze the gaps? Describe the process slightly in detail if you could.
Okay, that's an excellent one, Sam, again. So in terms of how deep you can go, and I want to go back a little bit though, Sam,
Yeah.
before I go deep, is that it relates to improvement. You can go as simple as possible and you can go complex. But oftentimes the simpler it is, the better.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
the easier it is to implement, right? And so one of the things that we did when I went in is one to get the buy-in from all the C-suite in the organization because we know that it's going to be a team effort. And a lot of times when you go into organizations, it's usually one person there struggling trying to get this thing done.
Yeah.
And it's really a team effort. And the more cross-functional the group is, the more robust the team outcome will be, right? So we got that buy-in right away. We had that trust with them as well. So they basically gave us access to all the databases and all the information. So I was able with my team to go in and download anything that we needed. We're given all the access that we needed. And of course, IT is going to be a big part of the whole process. And especially now, as we are talking about the fourth industrial revolution and
Yeah.
working from home, especially for the manufacturers, etc., CAD system, CAD-CAM systems, we need technology, we need IT support. That's going to be a big thing, a big part of it going forward. So we were able to be there, download anything, everything that we need. And I think I spoke about it earlier in the discussion,
Yeah.
wherein we integrate ourselves into the system. So we were a part of the team.
Okay.
So we weren't seen as a consultant, etc. We were a member of the team, right? It's all of us in this together. And so I went in, downloaded what we needed, asked any question that we needed to. So we were right there. We had access to all the quality persons. So if we saw anomalies, we could say, what happened in this particular month, etc. Usually I would go with a 2 year span, just
Okay.
to ensure to see the trends. If the organization has that, that's great. If not, I'll look at the last 6 months in
Okay.
terms of data sets and just look at the trends and the gaps that exist in those data sets as it relates to, the either inputs or outputs or the process itself, right? And I'm looking for anything that is wasteful, anything that is not contributing to what the customer needs. I'm looking for those points, right? So what the customer isn't willing to pay for, what is not adding value to the stakeholders. Those are the points that I'm looking for to highlight and to bring to the fore, right? But I don't want persons to think that okay, this whole matter of growth and improvement is way beyond me and there's nothing that I can do right now. It's so overwhelming. I know it's easy when you don't have any control about some of the things that are happening, or you don't have robust systems in place, or you don't have the capabilities internally to deal with some of these things. But or you may be faced with impending closure, for example, and are not able to really focus on it. But it's so important. It's almost like what they would say, no matter how much you make or how little you make, you should always put aside a percentage of your salary for savings. And that's a must. You consider these improvement or growth opportunities an investment in the company's future that every company needs to invest in on a daily basis.
Okay, so let's go back to your comment about 2 year historical data. So one
Uh-huh.
axis I got that you are looking at 2 year, right? And then
Yeah.
are you looking at the, let's say, the P&L balance sheet? Are you looking at the revenue, and then you are trying to figure out, okay, in which month the revenue dropped? Or are you looking at the monthly defects? Are you looking at the all the expenses that you have, let's say, on the P&L, and based on that you are drawing? So what is the other axis? What are you comparing it on the axis of time?
Right. So, we're looking at all of what you mentioned. We are looking at what is the waste that is generated over time.
Okay.
What's the kind of inventory that you maintain over time, the demand for the goods or the service that you're providing. We're
Okay.
looking at quality specifications. We're looking at some of the inefficiencies which may exist in your operations as it relates to machine availability. We're looking at production volumes and cost to the system as well, and the overheads. The cost factor is very important as well, and we look at other efficiency measures, right, and ratios, and of course the P&L and will also give great, and the balance sheet will give great information, but it's not the only factor. And then there are some things that you just as I said before, you have to go to Gemba and see. Now
Yeah.
with COVID, we may have to do virtual tours, but actually, integrating yourself into the system, you're able to see what works and what doesn't work. And then we always tap into the persons that work and are the experts on the ground themselves and, get their perspectives. So as it relates to data, there are many ways you can get it, and either primary or secondary data. So it may mean talking to the clients one on one. It may mean talking to the employees who work in the system to capture those, looking at the data, and then bringing it all together with your years of experience, and what I've seen in other organizations and industries and other countries, and bringing that all together to create a bespoke plan for that organization. Because I really believe that every organization is like an individual that's unique, right? We all have a different DNA, different fingerprint. And I think a system that will work for one may not work for another. So it's not a cookie cutter approach, but actually creating that bespoke, something customized to that system that will work for that organization is going to be golden. And you want to actually create that framework in a way that all contributes, where it's a win-win, and you are creating like mini rock stars in your organization that will just continue the show for years to come.
Tamar, that's it for today. Do you have any last minute closing thoughts by any chance?
Yes, I do, Sam. And, I want to encourage everyone listening to really challenge the status quo in their organization. and to not just be looking and putting band-aids on the effect, but to really go down to the root cause of the problems and ensure that we are constantly looking at creating value for our stakeholders and continuously growing. So use the team approach, look at improving your systems on a daily basis. And if you want to, speak to me, we can book a strategy call where we can connect and I can do a free gap analysis for you and your organization and see what you will need to build your operational resiliency.
Okay, amazing. And my personal takeaway from the conversation is going to be that don't just rely on the data that you are getting from the computer. You have to also talk to real people in the field because they have the real insight that you
Yeah.
will require for your operational improvement and also for the operational resiliency. On that note, Tamar, I really want to thank for your time. This has been a fascinating conversation and very insightful.
I want to thank you too, Sam, for having me.
I cannot thank our guests enough for coming on the show for sharing their knowledge and journey. I always pick up learnings from our guests and hopefully you learned something new today. If you want to learn more about Tamar, book a strategy call or receive a free operational resilience gap analysis, get in touch with her at tamarnelson.com. It's TAMAR at TAMARNELSON.com or DM her on LinkedIn at Tamar-Nelson. She is the one with a green circle. Links and more information will also be available in the show notes. If anything in this podcast resonated with you and your business, you might want to check other related episodes, including the interview with Sanjeev Bhatmangalkar, who discusses why lean is a strategy in thinking and why most companies fail with lean as they focus on tools. Also, the interview with Paul Critchley from New England Lean Consulting, who discusses the practical examples of how to apply 5 S's of lean to your organization. Also, don't forget to subscribe and spread the word among folks with similar backgrounds. If you have any questions or comments about the show, please review and rate us on your favorite podcasting platform or DM me on any social channels. I'll try my best to respond personally and make sure you get help. Thank you, and I hope to catch you on the next episode of the WBS Podcast.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the WBS Podcast. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite podcasting platform so you never miss an episode. For more information on growth strategies for SMBs using ERP and digital transformation, check out our community at WBS.rocks. We'll see you next time.